Hello, I'm Tim and I have too many books. So, Celebrity Traitors 2025 is upon us. And being celebrities, the participants have written lots and lots of books. So let's look into some of those books and see if any are worth reading. It has to be said that I'm doing this video because I have actually read books written by 3 of the Celebrity Traitors participants. So I'll be talking about those and also about some of the others who've written books which aren't necessarily just memoirs. The first thing to do perhaps is to eliminate people who haven't actually put pen to paper as yet. So, Nico Omilana, Tamika Ebsen, Ruth Codd, Kat Burns and Mark Bonnar are all eliminated. Although we'll probably see memoirs from a few of them at some point in the future. Of the remaining 14 Celebrity Traitors participants, 7 of them have only ever written some kind of memoir, and the other 7 have written things that go beyond just memoir. And we'll be focusing mainly on them, although it is probably wise to just get the others out of the way. Paloma Faith has written a memoir called MILF, Motherhood, Identity, Love and Effery. Alan Carr has written a couple of books of memoir called Look Who It Is and Anatomy. Charlotte Church, who has been a celebrity for a very long time, wrote a book called Voice of an Angel when she was still a teenager, and more recently has written a book called Keep Smiling. Jo Marler has written a rugby-based memoir called Loose Head, and Jo Wilkinson has created an autobiography in the shape of a graphic novel. About a decade ago, Kate Garraway celebrated her 50th birthday with a book called The Joy of Big Knickers. More recently, she has written a couple of memoirs, The Strength of Love and the Power of Hope, which has documented her relationship with her husband Derek Draper as he suffered from a very serious bout of COVID, which left him in a coma for a long time, and then long COVID which debilitated him and eventually led to his death in early 2024. And finally, Lucy Beaumont wrote a memoir called Drinking Custard, The Diary of a Confused Mom. Now to the Celebrity Traitors who have written more than just memoirs. Tom Daley has written a couple of memoirs based around his life as an Olympic diver and a gold medalist, one called Coming Up for Air and the other one called My Story. He also branched out into health-related recipe books in works like Tom's Daily Plan and Tom's Daily Goals. He's also published a couple of instructional and pattern books for knitting and crochet, one called Get Stitched and the other Get Hooked. The Tom Daley book I'm going to recommend here is another book of knitting instructions and patterns called Made with Love. Clare Balding has written a memoir called My Animals and Other Family, a novel called Pastures New, a non-fiction book on called Heroic Animals, and another non-fiction book which is my recommendation to you, which is called Isle of Dogs, where she travels Britain and meets interesting dogs. Actor and comedian Nick Mohammed reminds me quite a lot of Ricky Gervais and Matt Berry. They're all actors and comedians who were a rather annoying presence until they kind of found their feet, found their niche, and suddenly you kind of appreciate not only what they're doing but all the things they've done before. For Ricky Gervais, this was things like Extras and The Office. For Matt Berry, things like Things We Do in the Shadows and Toast of London. And for me, Nick Mohammed really began to shine when I saw him in Ted Lasso. Nick Mohammed is a trained magician and used to use magic quite a lot in his act in the early days. He wrote a couple of children's books about young magicians. One is called The Young Magicians and the 24-Hour Telepathy Plot, and the other, my recommendation, is The Young Musicians and the Thieves' Almanac. David Olusoga came to some prominence for his television series A House Through Time, which he wrote an accompanying book for. He wrote a book about the people from the Empire who fought in the First World War called A World's War, and he also wrote a book called Cult of Progress. But my pick and my recommendation is Black and British, which is a survey of the history of black people in Britain. I find the book fair-minded, although sometimes deeply critical, and Black and British is a survey of the experiences of Africans in Britain going back to ancient times, but mainly from about the 16th right through to the 21st centuries. And while it is critical of many things that Britain has done to African people and African defended people, it also points out the times when Britain didn't feel it was British to be cruel to Africans and black people. Stephen Fry has written 4 novels, 3 works of memoir, 4 Greek myth retellings, and sundry other books. And it is one of these other books that I want to draw your attention to. Shortly after writing his first novel, The Liar, he also came out with Paperweight. This is a book of his journalism and radio pieces between about 1982 and 1992. While it is not as confessional as later memoirs like Moab is My Washpot, Paperweight does give you a picture of Stephen Fry being very creative and commenting on politics and the world around him. Paperweight also contains the text of a play written by Stephen Fry and performed at an Edinburgh festival called Tobacco and Boys. There has to be a bit of a content warning on Tobacco and Boys. It's the kind of play where if you don't laugh with it, you really are going to find it not just offensive, but really rather disturbing. Jonathan Ross has published a volume of memoir called Why Did I Say That?, which presumably deals with the times where his loose tongue has got him the sack, and also a book called The Incredibly Strange Film Book. This is based on a TV series he did back in 1989, where he did a survey of cult directors, people like Ed Wood, Sam Raimi, John Waters. This book was published in the early 90s, and in a second edition they included a profile of Quentin Tarantino. Finally, we get to Celia Imrie. Although she has written 6 novels, I really want to recommend her memoirs. Firstly, though, let's deal with the 6 novels. She's written 3 novels set in Nice, Not Quite Nice, Nice Work If You Can Get It, and A Nice Cup of Tea. Another novel, Sail Away, features an actress giving lectures aboard a cruise ship who discovers a murder. And then she has 2 historical novels, Orphans of the Storm, which I believe is set on the Titanic, and Meet Me at Rainbow Corner. The book I really want to talk about is Celia Imrie's memoir, The Happy Hoofer. It is, let us say, unfiltered. She very much expresses her opinion, and there are some rather strange things about it. We discover that while she's not particularly interested in sex, she has been harassed by actors. She has somehow, after a platonic relationship with a famous writer, inherited a large amount of things from him. And there's also the story of how she got her son, which might change the way you think about the 1995 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. It's a lot of fun, she's very witty and a very good, and if you have to read just one book, it is definitely The Happy Hoofer by Celia Imrie. So a hopefully quick run through of some of the books in Celebrity Traitors this year. Hopefully there will be some that you want to read. Like I said, Happy Hoofer definitely should be on your reading list if you haven't read it already, and if you have read it already, you probably know why I'm recommending it. Goodbye.